Origin and etymology. The word vampire is believed to have originated from the Slavic word vampir, which spread throughout Eastern Europe in the 18th century. The term refers to undead creatures who rise from their graves to feed on the blood of the living. However, the concept of vampiric beings dates back much further, appearing in ancient cultures across the globe. Mesopotamian, Roman, and Greek mythology all contain creatures that share traits with the modern vampire, such as draining life from the living. The most recognizable form of the vampire legend comes from Eastern European folklore, particularly from regions like Romania, Serbia, and Hungary. In these tales, vampires were often described as the reanimated corpses of people who died prematurely or under suspicious circumstances. These vampires were believed to prey on the blood or life force of the living, leading to the spread of illness, death, and supernatural fear. Vampire in Eastern European folklore. In Eastern European traditions, vampires were typically seen as bloated, ruddy-skinned corpses rather than the sleek, pale aristocrats often depicted in modern media. They were thought to rise from their graves at night to drain the blood of their victims, leading to a variety of superstitious practices to prevent vampirism. People would stake suspected vampires through the heart, burn the corpses, or remove the head to ensure that they would not rise again. Romania, particularly the region of Transylvania, became synonymous with vampires largely due to the influence of later literature, but the belief in vampires existed in many Slavic and Balkan cultures. One of the most famous vampire figures in folklore was strigoi, a term used in Romanian folklore to describe the restless spirits of the dead who return to life to drink human blood. The vampire legend in literature. Vampires rose to literary prominence in the 18th century when reports of vampire sightings in Eastern Europe spread to Western Europe. These stories sparked a wave of vampire hysteria and became the inspiration for early literary works. The first significant vampire novel was The Vampire, 1819, written by John Polidori, which introduced the aristocratic vampire Lord Ruthven, a figure that would greatly influence future depictions of vampires. However, the most famous and enduring literary portrayal of a vampire is Count Dracula from Bram Stoker's Dracula, 1897. Stoker's novel cemented many of the characteristics now associated with vampires, such as their aversion to sunlight, need for blood, and ability to transform into bats or wolves. Dracula's character was partially inspired by Vlad the Impaler, a 15th century ruler of Wallachia known for his brutal reign and rumored vampiric tendencies. Legend and folklore. The vampire story is rich with cultural variations and interpretations, but several key elements have remained consistent across different legends. Blood drinking. In nearly all vampire myths, vampires are creatures that sustain themselves by drinking the blood of the living. Blood is often seen as a life force, and by consuming it, the vampire extends its unnatural life while weakening its victims. Immortality and undeath. Vampires are undead, meaning they have returned from death in some form. They are often portrayed as immortal beings who cannot die from natural causes, though they may have specific weaknesses such as sunlight, silver, or holy relics. Transformation. In various legends, vampires possess the ability to transform into animals such as bats, wolves, or mist, enabling them to escape detection or travel unnoticed. Weaknesses. While vampires are formidable creatures, they are traditionally vulnerable to sunlight, which can destroy them, and to items such as garlic, crosses, and holy water, which can repel them. Turning others. Vampires are often depicted as having the ability to create more vampires by biting or killing their victims, thus spreading vampirism. This process can sometimes be depicted as a curse or infection passed on to the victim. Vampire hysteria and beliefs. During the 18th century, vampire hysteria spread throughout Eastern Europe, leading to exhumations and rituals meant to ward off vampirism. Many believed that diseases such as tuberculosis and plague were caused by vampires, as these illnesses caused victims to waste away, seemingly drained of life. In response, people would exhume corpses and perform rituals like staking them through the heart, burning, or beheading to prevent the dead from rising again. One famous case occurred in 1725, when a Serbian peasant named Peter Plagojavac was reported to have died and returned as a vampire, attacking his family members. His grave was opened, and his body was found with fresh blood on his lips, leading locals to stake him and burn his body. This incident, along with similar ones, spread vampire lore across Europe. Modern depictions. In modern popular culture, vampires have evolved from horrifying creatures of folklore into more complex characters with varying traits. While traditional traits like blood drinking and immortality remain, modern vampires are often depicted with more human characteristics, making them more relatable or even sympathetic. In literature and film, vampires have become iconic figures in the horror and fantasy genres. Modern portrayals include everything from fearsome predators to tragic figures burdened by immortality, as seen in Anne Rice's The Vampire Chronicles and films like Interview with the Vampire. Vampires have also been depicted as romantic figures, such as in the Twilight series, where vampires struggle with their supernatural nature and human emotions. Summary: vampires are among the most enduring and adaptable figures in mythology, with roots that stretch across centuries and cultures. From their origins in Eastern European folklore to their transformation into literary and cinematic icons, vampires continue to fascinate and terrify. Whether portrayed as bloodthirsty monsters or tragic immortals, the legend of the vampire remains a powerful symbol of life, death, and the supernatural.